Good evening. A very warm welcome to this edition of Rush Hour on ET Now. I'm Vikram with all the rush of news and updates that we have at the top of the hour. And this as we roll out our evening primetime programming on the channel. Up front, of course, we're tracking global news, and that takes us to Moscow. Russia has emerged as China's biggest oil supplier. And data for February is showing this. No wonder the Chinese President Xi Jinping has received this red carpet welcome by Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin. Meanwhile, the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has landed in Ukraine, in Kiev, possibly in a message to both China and Russia. And amidst all this political posturing and individual interests, we ask this basic question: is there even a serious attempt now to end the war in Ukraine? It remains the all-important question to ask. And for that, our political analyst Dr. Sanjaya Baru is joining us. He, of course, is a distinguished fellow with the United Service Institution of India. Dr. Baru, it's good to have you with us. A very good evening to you. Now, as we see the optics, the red carpet really being rolled out for the Chinese president at the Kremlin, do tell us, with the Chinese proposal of peace between, or brokering a peace between China, between, I should say, Russia and Ukraine, how do you think it is actually going to pan out? Because at this point in time, after brokering that deal that China already has, Xi Jinping is hoping to come across like a statesman and find himself a closer ally in Russia. Is that going to happen?
Well, I think the China-Russia relationship is independent of what is happening in Ukraine. And it is a relationship that was cemented last year when Putin visited Beijing. And this is a return visit by Xi Jinping. And this relationship will remain strong for some time to come. Don't forget that in the past, they were allies, then they were enemies, they went to war with each other, and now they are once again allies. But as far as the Ukraine situation is concerned, the war is not really between Russia and Ukraine. It is between Russia and the United States. Let's get that clear. Until the United States is willing to come to some term agreement that will allow Russia to retain at least some part of the land that it has already got under its control, I don't see any peace. Any peace settlement will require some acceptance of Russian security interests and acceptance of even if it's a temporary. I mean, I wrote a piece some months back equating this part of Ukraine to POK. India and Pakistan have lived with what we call Pakistan-occupied Kashmir for 75 years. And I think now we have a situation where Ukraine will have to live with a Russian-occupied Ukraine for a long time to come. So a ceasefire is the first step when they actually stop fighting each other. The second step would be some kind of a settlement. And I don't see a settlement in the near future. This could drag on for a long time. So the two are different issues. There could be a ceasefire, but that doesn't mean the problem in Ukraine is solved. And finally, the United States is playing a big game of retaining its global influence at a time when China is emerging as a superpower. And so there's a big power conflict. And it's an East-West conflict that the world is looking at in Ukraine.
But Dr. Baru, as far as the West is concerned and led by the US, they've tried to isolate Russia. They've tried to demonize Putin. But that hasn't quite worked out. Countries like India, several African countries have been averse to this. In this kind of situation, the closing ties between China and Russia and the possibility of perhaps military ties between China and Russia, how does that change the world order?
I think, first of all, we in India should recognize that Russia is an independent country with a long history. It will remain an independent player. It needs China at the moment because of the situation it is in. But I don't think we should underestimate the Russian mind that seeks a kind of strategic autonomy. Just as India believes in strategic autonomy, India believes in independent foreign policy, but we have been with the United States on many occasions. The US has helped us on many occasions. We are part of several relationships. The Quad is one of them where the US is there, but SCO is the other where China and Russia are there. So we are really in the process of moving towards a multipolar world. It's going to be a messy situation. I don't think we can escape the reality of a very messy transition to a new world, which I call a bi-multipolar world. in which China and the United States will be the two dominant powers. But many countries, including Russia, India, South Africa, Brazil, Indonesia, I mean, Turkey, there are many other countries which will want to retain some element of independence from these two superpowers.
Dr. Baru, in passing, also do tell us, in the present moment when Xi Jinping is in Russia, is in Moscow, and he's being very warmly received over there, at this point in time, China is going to try and broker a peace deal. At least optically, they're going to try and do that. Is it going to be about brokering a peace deal, or is it about going beyond trade and technology for China to be able to get into a military alliance with Russia? Is that something that is likely to happen right now?
Well, China has a strong military relationship with Russia, but this brokering of a peace deal, as I said, the war is not between Russia and Ukraine. It's really between the United States or the West as a whole. European arms are going into Ukraine. Only the European and American soldiers are not there. I mean, unlike in Afghanistan, where European soldiers, American soldiers fought Russia, in Ukraine, there are no lives being lost by the West. But certainly the West is supplying arms and technological support, etc. So it's a major power conflict in which you have China and Russia on one side and Europe and the US on the other side.
We will keep watching the situation. Meanwhile, of course, you can't forget that Russia and China share a border which is as long as 4,300 kilometers, closer ties between the two countries. Perhaps the West is going to raise its eyebrows on, but how much further this conflict gets elongated, because there is no sign of peace, at least at this point. We will keep monitoring the situation and keep connecting with experts like you. Dr. Sanjaya Baru, appreciate your joining us on this edition of the Rush Hour.
Thank you.